everyone, my name is Hiki and welcome back to It Gets So Lonely here. I'm using my PNG model because I feel like it fits the vibe more. Also, I'm lazy to bring out my 3D model. So yeah, I haven't played this game in a while. Oh my gosh. Oh right, we had the dream. Yeah, now I remember now. We had the dream about getting buried alive. No, getting buried alive was the gravedigger's thing. What was the dream? Something really gory. You feel disoriented when you awake at long last with the rising of the sun. You do not remember what you dreamt, but you do not think that your dreams were of a particularly pleasant nature. If they were, your heart would not be hammering so. Ill at ease, you glance around. You are lying in a narrow bed in an unremarkable room with dull beige walls and a warped wooden floor. Where exactly are you? This does not look like your dormitory in the conservatoire, not unless it has shrunk threefold overnight. Your brow furrows as you attempt to recall the events of the night prior, until, with a gasp, it all clicks into place. You remember now. You're running through the woods, trying to escape from... You shudder. You do not want to think of what it was you were trying to escape from. You presume that you must have given your hunter the slip, though, because you are still in one piece, awake and alert enough to face the dawning of a new morning. You still have all of your limbs, and your facial features appear to be in the correct configuration. That is more than enough to be getting along with. You look to the foot of your bed, then blink, bemused at your discovery. You can see, lying upon the sheets, a garment, 2 garments actually, of black and white, folded into a neat white square. What could that be? A maid's outfit? If so, it would not be too surprising. You can now recall your visit with the princess the night prior, and her assertions that you must be her lady's maid. Well, if that's the role she wants you to assume, you have no qualms with it. It is far preferable to the other role you played last night, that of a startled quarry, running from its pursuer. You press your fingers against the humble maid's attire. It feels surprisingly soft to the touch, not coarse like you expected. These clothes are rather fine. Did the princess put them there? If so, that is all the more reason to wear them. You are not churlish enough to deny her hospitality. You rise from your new bed, then undress yourself, unbuttoning the front of your plain white nightgown and setting it aside. This task accomplished, you then clad yourself in your new attire, black, white, and eminently sensible. You feel very far away from the girl that you once were. Your face might be the same as always, but something within you seems to have changed. You are no longer a student, not as long as you mean to reside within the princess's castle. You would far rather be her servant. Assured of your newfound identity, you retreat from your chamber, then make your way to your mistress's bedroom. The castle is a large one with many rooms and many hallways to connect them, and for a brief while you find yourself horrendously lost. You cannot remember where the princess's bedroom is. You are beginning to feel rather disoriented when, to your relief, your eyes snag upon a stairwell which looks rather familiar. Could this be the way? You ascend these steps, your footfalls cushioned by the plush carpet in which lines them, then find your way down the very same hall you traversed the night prior. If your memory does not fail you, then the princess's bedroom ought to be... Yes, it is here. You rap upon the door but receive nothing in the way of a response. Is this princess still abed? You wonder briefly whether you oughtn't wait until she has risen of her own accord. But no, the sun is high in the sky, and it would be a shame to let the princess sleep through the day. You ought instead to rouse her. That seems like the sort of duty a lady's maid should attend to. You enter the princess's bedroom and glance about. Her room looks much the same as you remember from the night prior, though the ceiling seems even higher when viewed in the wan morning's light. You can see now that there are fewer shadows to impede your view, how very opulent your young mistress's abode is. Her armoire is large and imposing, as is the grate in which she will be expected to keep a fire lit during the nights. The princess herself, meanwhile, is curled on her side beneath the sheets, looking rather less grandiose than her title would suggest. She is attired in a nightgown adorned with frills, and her hair is split across her pillow like spilled gold. In her slender arms, meanwhile, held to her chest, is a doll, the very same one she was cassetting last night. You suppose this doll must be her favorite. Idly, you wonder what the doll's name is, though you do not suppose it matters all that much. It is time to wake your mistress. You call out to the princess, but she is largely unresponsive. Her eyelashes are still sewn tightly shut, and her lips are pursed in slumber. You purse your lips too and sigh. Well, nobody ever said your job would be easy. Once again you call to the princess, and this time she replies. Her response is not a favorable one, however. She sighs, then turns away from you, her doll clutched to her chest. I forgot what voice I gave her. Just give me a little longer. The princess sounds so enfeebled, but you do not take pity on her. If you've learned anything from the conservatoire, save for knowledge pertaining to the respiratory tracts of fish, it is that one must be cruel to be kind. You do not think this adage was practiced with any great success in the conservatoire, but perhaps it will have more of an impact upon the princess. You tell her once again to wake up, more sternly this time. You will not let her sleep, for she has slept long enough already. It is very slovenly, really, to still be abed at such an hour. Oh, defeated, the princess sighs. Alright, I can see that I can't twist you around my little finger. Oh, cute! I'm up. You don't need to nag me. Once you have roused the princess from her bed, and you have put her doll to one side, you set upon her toilet. You aid the princess in the brushing of her hair, a chore to which she submits willingly, like a cat might allow its fur to be brushed. You allow yourself to ponder, as you run the bristles of the princess's brush through her hair, how wonderfully soft it feels against your skin. But a curious query from the princess, "Are you alright, dear one?" brings you back to your senses. You were rather lost in thought there. Look lively now. You wouldn't want the princess to catch wind of your salacious thoughts, would you? I thought that you had learned your lesson about that already. I still am bothered by the narrator suddenly going into first person. That's interesting. I still want to know who they are. Suitably chastened, you finish the princess's hair, then set the brush aside. Now that the princess's tresses have been taken care of, you must start on her attire. The princess remains seated upon the edge of her bed, looking up at you askance. She does not ask you to avert your eyes, and nor does she make any motion of divesting herself on her nightgown. I'm having a hard time reading, oh no. It really does seem as though she expects you to undertake this task on your own. Is that alright? You ask the princess as much. You would not wish to impinge upon her modesty, but she only laughs. Yes, that's alright. It's what you're supposed to do if you're to be my lady's maid. I'm used to being dressed and undressed. I'm not a bit squeamish about it. She might not be squeamish about it, but you are. You have never seen a naked woman before excepting yourself. Even then, however, you have always dressed and undressed furtively, not wanting to examine your body for longer than than is strictly necessary. You have never much liked the way that you look. You make a few more mumbled objections, but the princess sweeps them to one side easily. It's alright. I might be a princess, but we're both people underneath all of our clothes. I doubt we look much different. You are not sure about that. You have not yet seen the princess unadorned, but you already know, to look at her face, that you are different. She is much, much prettier than you are. But she is waiting, and you do not wish to keep her any longer. You steady your nerves. Then you reach out with trembling hands, and you begin to undo the buttons which run down the front of the princess's nightgown. Voice crack, sorry. You work as quickly as you are able, which, given how badly your hands are shaking, is not very. You fumble with a couple of the buttons, flinching as you do so. The princess, however, seems blissfully unaware of what it is exactly you are doing, or not doing, for her fingers have begun to seize up with the front of her nightgown. She is not even looking at you. Instead, her gaze is directed beyond your shoulder to the windowsill and the sky beyond it. It isn't particularly sunny, but I don't think it's too cold outside. Going for a walk might not be a bad idea. What do you think, dear one? You think that you would like to finish undressing the princess as soon as possible so you can make some progress on dressing her again. The sight of all this exposed skin is bad for your heart. Fortunately, you are able to make a quick work of the princess's nightgown despite your initial mishaps, spurred on, perhaps, by your anxiety. You bid the princess to stand, which she does, and neatly. She steps out of her nightgown, her motions once again as graceful and as fluid as a dancer's. This task completed, you search hurriedly, worriedly, for the princess's red dress. Where is it? You cannot find it. Sweat begins to prickle on the back of your neck. Your palms, meanwhile, feel uncomfortably clammy. The moments pass awkwardly, uneasily, as you search, the princess standing there all the while, as naked as the day she was born. Why did you not find her day dress before you stripped her of her night one? What a fool you are. The princess, noting your panic, giggles, then says, "Are you looking for my dress?" "Yes," you reply, your face flush. "That is what you were doing." "I thought so. I did wonder before you started undressing me why you not ask where it was. Maybe it slipped your mind?" It had slipped your mind, yes, to your shame. You are too busy trying not to fixate upon the princess's bared skin to think about how best to conceal it. "My dress is in my armoire," the princess says, glancing over to the aforementioned piece of furniture. What's an armoire? Or, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Oh, it's like a cabinet. Okay, got it. That armoire of hers is an intricately carved wooden structure, large enough, or so you estimate, to fit inside it enough dresses to attire a whole ballroom's worth of princesses. "I'd like to wear the red one. It's my favorite. Would you be a dear and fetch it for me?" "I don't want to rush you, but it is rather cold in here, especially when I'm still naked." She raises a good point. You turn away from the princess and make your way to her armoire. Once there, you open its wooden doors and peruse the clothes hanging within. It is just as you expected. Inside that wardrobe lies numerous dresses, all of them finely sewn and decorated with no shortage of ribbons, lace, and iridescent pearls. You find the princess's red dress soon enough, then hurry to her side. With your spoils in hand, you hurry to dress her, concealing once again the princess's pale skin beneath layers upon layers of soft red velvet. She is easier to look at now, you think, with her skin concealed. That might have been the most nerve-wracking task you have ever had to accomplish, even more so than your perilous escape through the foggy forest. Why, it seems a small miracle you can still remember how to breathe. Ah, that's much better. Thank you, dear one, for your help. You have not been here for a full day, but I already wonder what I'd do without you. Shyly, you assure the princess that you did nothing, really. Nothing beyond your job. You did not do anything incredible. And in any case, being complimented by somebody so pretty is embarrassing. Aw, don't be like that. I want to compliment you. Why shouldn't I, when you've been so helpful? It'd be rude not to, and anyway, I think you're very pretty too. Oh my. Your face flushes from this, more deeply than ever before. You ought to count yourself lucky, really, what with all of this excessive blushing, that the princess does not seem to possess any vampiristic tendencies. You are making yourself quite the easy target. Now, the princess declares, why don't we go for a walk? It's a nice enough day, and I get so very bored of being cooped up inside. You can't think of any particular objections to raise to this remark, and you think that the princess might have a point. The castle, though expansive, is somewhat stifling. The walls are so very thick, they put you in mind of a crypt. With your acquiescence assured, the princess quits her chamber, her posture elegant and her gait unhurried. She seems not to walk, as she navigates her way through the seemingly endless hallways of her home, but to float like a cloud. The hem of her dress swishes around her legs, and her hair shifts like a shroud. The castle's courtyard, meanwhile, is sadly lacking in comparison to the princess's beauty. Pretty! The courtyard is fenced in by the castle's walls, which look into stark mid-daylight, tall and imposing, faceless soldiers standing sentinel. Though the sun is out, it is not particularly bright, and neither is it particularly warm. The courtyard itself, meanwhile, is in a state of disarray. The flower beds are all in shambles, all overgrown with weeds. It is rather depressing. The princess's castle might be grand in scale, but the courtyard itself is simple, hemmed into a claustrophobic degree, like a coffin. The princess, however, seems not to share your dolorous mood. She instead looks elated by her newfound surroundings, her smile unwavering. She gambols about like a lamb, flitting hither and thither as she examines the weed-infested flower beds. Her frolicking comes to a cease, however, by a bush. One is full of bright red roses. Oh, how very pretty! Do you not think they are gorgeous, dear one? The flowers are not too disappointing, you suppose. They make for a fine spectacle, in fact, a welcome splash of color when contrasted with the dullness and drabness which permeates the rest of the courtyard. Though the other flowers in their beds are wilted, withered things, it is not so for these roses. They are rich bright red, just like blood, their heads so full they almost seem to droop beneath the weight of their own engorged petals. They are pretty, in a sense, but there is something unsettling about them too, something that is almost obscene. How did those roses become so very red? What has been sustaining them? Could it be possible that these roses have been draining the life from the other flowers which are struggling to grow within this garden? It is a fanciful thought, but... Oh, they are simply divine. Looking at these roses always lifts my spirits. They really are my most favorite flowers. I simply must pick some of them. Perhaps I can use them to decorate my bedchamber. It could use a bit of color. The princess reaches out so as to pluck one of the roses free from its resting place amongst its brethren. You watch her, your breath bated, anxious that this gesture might result in a perforated flesh and bright red blood. But the princess is not as clumsy as you fear. Of course she is not. Who did she think she was? You? Rather than worrying about other people, you would be better served if you worried more about yourself. The princess holds her newly pilfered rose to her nose and inhales, her eyelids falling shut as the flower's sweet scent washes over her. A few moments of silence pass. Then, the princess begins to toy with the petals which adorn the flower's crown. Now, let me see. I wonder what fate has in store for me. She loves me? The princess plucks a petal from the flower's overburdened head. She loves me not. The princess continues with this childish incantation, all while stripping her rose slowly and methodically of its petals. These petals flutter about the princess like bloody snow. The princess's voice, meanwhile, echoes throughout the courtyard, even more melodic than the strains of a pianola. She loves me not. She loves me not. The princess's fingers hover over the final petal which crowns her nearly denuded flower. Then with a triumphant smile she declares, "She loves me! I knew it!" You watch the princess, amused by her girlish good cheer. The little mantra she has been reciting is one that you are familiar with. The girls at the conservatoire also used to engage in this little game, the younger ones at least, who believed that the fairy tale prince would whisk them away. You might have participated in this game yourself, when you were a child yourself, but you never pinned your hopes and dreams on a handsome prince. Your interest in princess has always been minimal. When it comes to fair princesses, though, well, that is a different matter altogether, isn't it? Pleasantly, you ask the princess whose love it is she wishes to court, a query which makes the princess giggle. Oh, dear one, who else would I be thinking of? Naturally, I was thinking of you. Naturally. She says it so easily, as though you ought to have suspected as much, and indeed, part of you did. You wanted to believe, yet part of you was afraid to. You did not want to be arrogant enough to assume that the princess might care for your affections. You begin to blush, your cheeks almost as red as the roses, while the princess laughs. She laughs and she laughs and she laughs, her voice clear and sweet like a nightingale's song, as though you are the funniest thing she has ever seen. You never liked being laughed at when you dwelt within the walls of the conservatoire, but it is different with her. You have not known her for all that long, but you are already entranced by her, ensnared. She has you wrapped around her little finger. Oh my! The princess' laughter tapers off into a series of giggles as, smiling, she wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. That was quite the amusing diversion, but I've just had an idea. You look at the princess curiously. What idea? You can't tell? You cannot even begin to guess. I just thought that all this watching must be boring to you, the princess says, tossing the rose's stripped stem carelessly to the ground. You should give it a try. Oh my god. You should give it a try. Please do. It'll be fun. The princess retrieves a second rose from the bushes, deftly snapping it between her fingers, and offers it to you. I want to see what fate has in store for you too. You smile at the princess, touched by her enthusiasm. Indulging in childish games like this might not be the best use of your time, but the princess looks so very determined you would not wish to hurt her. What could be the harm really in consenting? The only real casualty of this game will be one singular rose, the rose that the princess is holding towards you. You reach out, meaning to accept the princess's offering, but... Oh no! You are clumsy and you seize the stem of the rose with a touch too much strength. The head of the rose might be pretty, but there's more to a rose than its bright red flowers. Roses have thorns too, a fact you are now being painfully reminded of. Pain flares through your finger and you gasp. You take a step back, the hem of your skirt swishing around your ankles. Your finger is stinging, and so are your eyes. You ought to have been more careful. Why were you so stupid? You poor dear, you're bleeding! The princess exclaims, alarmed. Then she frowns. This is all my fault. If I'd not suggested this silly game, this never would have happened. Please, let me take care of you. And how is she going to do that? Perhaps she's meant to take a handkerchief from her pocket, with which she might staunch your wound. Princesses tend to carry handkerchiefs around with them, don't they? Silken ones? How else would they give brave knights tokens of their gratitude, once those aforementioned knights have successfully slain dragons? Princesses can hardly dispense kisses as favors. It is simply not done. That is what you always thought, but... Please, hold still. This might sting a little bit. The princess is anything but ordinary. Rather than a handkerchief out of her pocket, she instead encloses her white slender fingers around your hand. Carefully, as though she is handling a precious object, she raises your hand, her eyes affixed, all the while, on the beads of startlingly crimson blood which are oozing luridly from your wound. She licks her lower lip. Then she dips her head.
Oh! Oh. Okay! Did you guys see the achievement? Oh my god, wait, I need to check it. I only saw it for a split second, I need to read what it says.
Rose red, but your blood is redder. Oh! She parts her mouth, and with a soft sigh which borders on the sensuous, she slips your injured digit between her teeth. So much for princesses not dispensing kisses as tokens of appreciation. This might not be a conventional kiss, but it feels intimate regardless, almost startlingly so. The princess's lips, which are as red as any rose, are enclosed around your index finger. You can feel the warmth of the princess's mouth about your skin and the wetness of it. These sensations make your whole body quake. You did not expect this. Tremulously, in a voice which wavers, you ask the princess what it is she is doing. Oh? The princess glances up at you, her mouth still enclosed around your finger. Didn't I tell you? I'm trying to stop the bleeding. Yes, you gathered as much, but... Is there a problem? I'm not making you uncomfortable, am I? It is not, you say, that she is making you uncomfortable, per se, but this is rather awkward. You did not expect it, that is all. And she is not worried about this, that this is unhygienic. Unhygienic? The princess blinks. She's the very picture of innocence, which is funny, really, given your finger is still nestled against her tongue. I don't know what you mean by that exactly, but I've heard that this is the best way to take care of cuts. My nursemaid used to do this for me when I was a child. It's what you're supposed to do. And you ask, your voice catching in your throat, did her nursemaid kept staunching her wounds with her mouth when she grew older? Well, no, but my nursemaid was dismissed when I was 8 years old. That's the normal way of things. I had my lady's maid to look after me then. How very interesting. And did they ever clean her wounds like this? No, the princess says, smiling mischievously, because I'm not clumsy enough to cut myself, silly. Now that was quite the sharp retort. You did not expect it. Your face turns even redder, if such a thing is possible, though this might perhaps be to your benefit. With some luck, all of your blood will flow to your face, rather than to your finger, and your bleeding will stop. Has it stopped? Your injury was not a deep one. There should be no need for the princess to keep on suckling, but she still is. You are not accustomed to intimacy of this nature. It is making your heart flutter. If the princess knew what her mouth was doing to you, you are sure she would not be so very familiar. You feel quietly, crushingly confident that she would scorn you for your feelings, and deem them unnatural. It would not be the first time. At this point, you should be used to rejection. It still stings, though. It stings much, much more than any thorn on any rose ever could. The days pass, following your misadventures in the rose garden, in a relaxed, unhurried sort of manner. Your mad dash through the forest is beginning to feel like a distant memory, so much so you can scarcely recall the raw, naked fear you once felt as you fled for your life. There is no running to be had while you are working for the princess. You would have nowhere else to run, and in any event, there is no longer any reason to run. The shadows which once torment you have at long last begun to recede. You can scarcely recall, as you lay down in your bed, the petty cruelties you were subjected to by your classmates at the conservatoire. They no longer matter. Your attention is focused, not upon yourself, but upon the princess. The more time you expend with her, the more you come to care for her. You have become quite besotted with her, but you are yet to realize it. Well, I never. How very ignorant can one girl be of her own feelings? The princess is not half so ignorant as you are, though, despite having spent her whole life within the palace's walls, the weight of her own feelings are not unknown to her, and during one stormy night, she chooses to make them known to you. You are in the princess's chambers later, perhaps, than you ought to be, later than is strictly appropriate. It is dark outside, and there is little save for the light of the moon to alleviate that, and the fire which crackles in the grate. You have only just finished stroking that very fire, and now you rise. You look to the princess, who is lying in her bed, and you bid her a good night, as you have many nights past. With a neat curtsy, you turn to leave, but the princess's plaintive voice gives you a pause. Wait, dear one. Do not go. Not just yet. Perplexed, you pause, then look back at the princess. Though she is smiling, her expression is unusually wan. Is that how I'm saying it correctly? Also, what does that mean? I am learning so many words. Oh, pale. Is it wan or wane? I don't know. Is she alright? Oh, I'm sure I'll be fine. It's just nights like this, you know, which make me feel a little out of sorts. And what, you ask, does she mean by that? Only that it is very cold and very dark. And it is very windy besides. I'm afraid that there will be a storm later. It was awfully cloudy earlier when we went out for our walk. The princess is not mistaken about that. The sky when the pair of you promenaded about the gardens earlier was grey and steely, the wind bitingly cold. You can hear the wind rattling mournfully against the panes in the princess's bedchamber. The princess's castle is built of stone and is well fortified, but even with the fire, it is rather cold. You do not like to think of how much chillier by comparison it will be in your humble bedchamber, which is not fortunate enough to have its own fireplace. It might sound childish, but I've always found it hard to sleep on stormy nights like this. They make me uncomfortable. You look at the princess with no small degree of sympathy. No longer clad in her bright red dress, she looks oddly, uncommonly vulnerable. Will she really be alright, all alone in her oversized bed, in her high-ceilinged bedchamber? You know it is silly of you to contemplate such a query. Well, why would she not be alright? There is nobody in the castle to hurt her, but still you fret for her. As her lady's maid, it is your job to fret for her. You would never want your mistress to feel unhappy. You ask the princess what it is she would have you do, and the princess perks up at this. Pleased, perhaps, that you are taking the initiative. I wouldn't like to take too much of your time when it is so very late. But would you mind sitting with me a little while longer and reading to me? Provided that you can, of course. It is a fair enough question, but your pride bristles regardless. Hastily, you reassured the princess that, yes, of course you could read. You were a poor student in many aspects at the conservatoire, but you had something of a gift when it came to the literary arts. I don't. Reading books is all you have ever been any good at. Seriously? The one skill that the MC has is the one I suck at. I cannot read. Oh my god, voice crack! Oh, I see. I suppose I should have known. You are so incredible. I sometimes wonder if there's anything you can't do. The princess's high praise makes you flush. Awkwardly, you look away. Being able to read, you reassure her, is not such a great feat. Perhaps it isn't where you hail from, but it is here. Very few of my old servants can read, and they certainly couldn't read the books that I like. This piques your interest. Intrigued, you ask the princess what books exactly she likes. Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm fond of fairy tales, you see. Old ones from centuries past. I have a collection of them here, the princess says, indicating a book on her bedside table, as thick as a mortuary slab. The book is old, though, and the bindings are weak. The pages brittle, the writing woefully old-fashioned. I didn't trust any of my past servants with that book, but I think you would do a good job breathing life into those old stories. Would you mind reading to me for just a brief while? Please, dear one, oh please! The princess's request seems a simple one expressed sweetly, so much so you see no reason to refuse her. You take a seat beside the princess upon her luxurious bed, which sinks beneath your weight. Then you retrieve the leather-bound book which is resting upon her bedside table and spread it open. The pages of the book are very brittle, like the princess said, and the bindings of the book are loose. You can feel in the heft of the book's manifold pages the wave of the ages concealed within it. How old is this book? Perhaps it is as old as the castle in which it resides. It is with a quiet voice, hesitant at first, that you begin to read to the princess, a tale of courtly love which culminates in a lavish wedding ceremony. All the while, as you read, the princess listens to you, enraptured, hanging, or so it seems, upon your every word. Once you reach to the final phrase embossed upon the pages of this aged tome, and they lived happily ever after, the princess sighs as though this tale has touched her very soul. Would that there was a handsome prince to marry me, she says somberly, or better yet, a beautiful princess. At this point, I think I would even settle for a lowly scullery maid. You blush at this idle remark and mumble softly that this would not be proper. The storm outside is still squalling, and you have never been one to raise your voice. You do not expect, therefore, that the princess will overhear you, but she does. She observes you, her head resting against your pillows, and says, "And what would be the problem with that, As my maid, shouldn't my happiness come before any silly ideas of propriety?" "Well, of course," you reply, "but for a princess to marry a scullery maid..." "You're still hung up about that?" the princess titters. "Don't pay too much heed, I'm just talking to myself." As if anything like that would happen, when there is no priest around who would officiate it. You think there are greater issues with the princess's plan than the lack of the priest, though she does present a good point. The castle is an empty one. Even if the princess were to find somebody that she loves, there would be nobody to make such a wedding official. You cannot help but feel like you have avoided a good deal of nuisance. But by the same token, you do not feel a touch disappointed? Well, never mind. That was a nice story, the princess says, but I'm not sleepy yet, and it's still storming outside. Won't you read me one more? You would not mind, you reply, but it is getting late. You really ought to return to your own chamber. I know, but can't you find it in your heart to read one more story to me? Just one. You can choose a short one. I won't complain. You have some doubts about that. But as before, you cannot resist the princess's demands. It is not, you think, because she is a princess, though that is of course a part of it, but because she is, well, radiant. You would not, you think, as you turn to the next story, recounted in this aged compendium, want to upset her. You would rather cut out your own tongue. You read another story to the princess, which is of a similar vein to the last, impossible adventures culminating at their close in a happy marriage. This tale delights the princess as much as the tale you read prior, and then she begs for another, then another. One bedroom story soon becomes 5, and even then when the candles which flicker on the princess's bedside are close to guttering out, the princess is not satisfied. Like a grasping, greedy child, she has never heard of moderation. When she wants something, she seeks to glut herself with it. Her only request is that of more. If she were less calmly, perhaps her inability to adhere to the word no would be seen as a character defect. The princess is very calmly, however, and so when she makes her next request, you almost agree offhand, without considering the ramifications. I think I could go to sleep now, but the storm is still raging. I feel lonely on my own in this big empty bed, so... I know! The princess's eyes light up like the night sky in a thunderstorm. Why don't you sleep with me? You stare at the princess, your eyes wide as goose eggs. Slowly you blink. Then just as slowly, you bid her to repeat herself. Didn't you hear me? The princess giggles. Maybe you've been so busy cleaning up after me, you've neglected to clean out your own ears. I said, dear one, would you like to sleep with me? If that is the question she truly means to ask, then it is easy enough to answer. Of course you would like to sleep with her. It would be an honor. But would it really be alright for you to accept such an invitation? It must be a gross breach of protocol, surely, for a lowly domestic such as yourself to share a bed with a princess. You sit upon the princess's bedside, fretting, while she observes with wide, beseeching eyes. She is waiting. Well, what's the matter, dear one? Why do you tarry so? Could it be... The princess's lower lip begins to tremble. Don't you want to lie with me after all? The sorrow present in the princess's voice and in her face makes you feel awfully guilty. Hurriedly, you console her. You tell her in no uncertain terms that if she truly wishes to partake in your company, then you have no qualms with it. Why would you? Well then, don't just stand there dilly-dallying, silly. Come and join me. Come. And that is what you do after returning briefly to your own chamber to change into your nightgown. Once dressed, you waste no time in returning to your impetuous princess's side. She is already lying in her glorious four-poster bed, awaiting your return as though you are a knight-errant gone away to slay some wicked dragon. The princess giggles when she sees you. In your haste to change, you have made a hash of the buttons, and she bids you to come closer. Let me fix that for you, silly. Oh no, you say. I couldn't possibly let you do that. I am but a servant after all. Should it not be your job to dress her? Maybe so, the princess says. But I don't mind a bit of a role reversal. It makes things more fun. You try a few more refutations, but in vain. The princess summarily discards all of them. Quite at the princess's mercy, she might be even more stubborn than you are. You capitulate to her demands. You let the princess unbutton the front of your nightdress, then rebutton them, so the fabric of your plain gown is drawn shut. Satisfied with her handiwork, she has very elegant hands. The princess draws back and pats the mattress beside her. Now come in. It must be horribly cold out there, but these sheets are warm. Coyly, the princess smiles. And so am I. You feel warm yourself as you slide into the bed beside the princess. Your face is as red as the gown the princess so often wears, as red as the roses in the castle's grounds. All the while your heart is fluttering. Does the princess know what an effect she is having on you? Surely she must. How could any woman be so blind? There! The princess exclaims once your body is lying beside hers. That is much better. Do you feel cozy now, dear one? You swallow, and with a shaky voice, you reassure her. Yes, you are cozy. You are quite cozy indeed. Very good. The storm might be raging outdoors, but it can't get us here. I know when I'm with you, I'll be safe. It's strange, but... The princess reaches out, then takes your hand in hers, twining your fingers together like a chain. When I'm with you, I feel so very light. It's as though nothing in the world can hurt me. You make me feel safe, so I want to make you feel safe too. I'll take very, very good care of you. I promise. You return her smile with one of your own, touched by her thoughtfulness, though something about her promise does make you wonder. Should it not be your job to look after her as a domestic? In a way, the princess replies after a pause. But you've been taking good care of me already. Now, I need to return the favor. As a princess, I'm supposed to look after my vassals. It's all part of the job description. You were unaware that being a princess came with a job description. You thought that the profession came with far fewer written responsibilities and far fewer forms to sign than, say, becoming a doctor, or an astrophysicist, or a mathematics professor. You tell the princess this sleepily, and she laughs. You do say some funny things, dear one. I think you must be tired. Rest your head. You've been working so hard. I think you deserve it. Yes, you think, only half conscious. You think you deserve it too. You have been working so hard for a long time. You have been running for even longer. But now, at long last, you feel like you can let your fears go. Your eyelids begin to droop, your body beleaguered by a sudden all-consuming fatigue. And in a quiet, understated sort of way, your consciousness is conveyed to Morpheus's kingdom. Your sleep is a deep one, despite the storm which rages outdoors. The wind is howling like a couple of wild cats, both locked in a vicious and bloodthirsty bout to the death, but you do not hear it. Swaddled by the warm blankets about you, and soothed by the princess's presence, you are immune from all the ills of the world. When you are with the princess, you feel safe, secure, and, yes, you even feel loved. It is a pity, then, that these feelings do not last for very long. You know that something is wrong, catastrophically so, the moment you open your eyes. Your thoughts are hopelessly jumbled, but you are certain that, when you fell asleep, it was in a bed, a nice warm bed no less, beneath soft, comfortable sheets. You are not lying in a bed right now, though. You are not, in fact, lying at all. Oh! You are standing instead against a cold, hard wall made of stone. The curve of your back is pressed against the wall so intimately you can feel its icy chill seeping through the fabric of your nightgown. Your feet, which are bare, are similarly pressed against cold, unfeeling stone. They feel so frigid you cannot help but tremble. You are trembling so much you can feel your teeth chattering together. They sound like castanets. The sound is almost jaunty as it echoes through your cell, for that is indeed where you are. The princess's bedchamber, wherein you fell asleep, is a thing now of the past. You are standing instead, you realize, with a sharp start, in the cell of some great underground dungeon. You swallow, and when you do, you can taste something bitter on your tongue. Your stomach is beginning to churn with anxiety. You feel like you are going to be sick, a feeling which swells up inside you to a staggering degree when you catch notice of the stench. You are not, you realize, the only one in the dungeon. There are others here, others attired in the simple black and white outfits of servants, which look much like the dress that you once wore. The others who are with you, however, in this expansive cell, manacled to the walls, are in no fit state to speak to you, nor to tell you of their plights. They are all unfeeling, unseeing, and unbreathing. They are all dead. Oh, that's a creepy remix! Oh god! You cannot approach these servants to check on their pulses, for you yourself are restrained. But even if you could, there would be no point. There is no way any human could survive the wounds which have been inflicted upon these sad, slumped bodies. Over there you see a woman slumped, in front of her once white apron stained with blackish blood. There is a gaping wound in her stomach, one through which her entrails have half escaped in some sort of burgundy goop which might have once been pale pink. There is another woman slumped beside the first of a smaller stature. She is skinnier. Maybe she is not a woman after all, but an adolescent like yourself. She might be even younger. The girl's age, or lack of, did not preclude her attacker from inflicting upon her horrors. Alas, for her body is even more mutilated than the first. Her body is peppered with even more wheals, and her face has been half smashed in. Only one eye remains, staring fixedly at the wall opposite her, in the ruined remains of what was once her skull. Over there you see a woman who is missing both her arms and her lower jaw. Over there you see another who is missing her entire lower half. Where have her legs gone? You have no idea. The injuries inflicted upon these bodies are ghastly, but their advanced decay isn't enough to turn your stomach. You do not know how long these carcasses have been lying down here, but they have begun to putrefy. You fear a similar fate might befall you should you stay here. You need to escape. Fitfully, you struggle against the manacles which bind you, but alas, it is no use. You cannot free yourself from the walls. Your restraints are much too strong, and you are much too weak. Panic rises up in your throat, cold and icy, while terror seizes your heart, this too glacial. It is obvious that escape is impossible, but still you squirm and writhe like a cat caught in a firestorm. Waterstorm? Why was I gonna say waterstorm? There is little point, however, to your struggles. You succeed in nothing, as you attempt to free yourself, save making the steel manacles dig in your abused wrists more sharply than ever. You gasp. That hurts. Well, you ought to have known that would not work. The very definition of insanity is, performing a set of action over and over again, hoping for a different response. In a sense, perhaps, one could argue optimism is not so very different from insanity. Now that is an interesting point to consider, would you not agree? No, evidently not. You are still trying to escape, you foolish girl, as if that will do you any good. That clangorous rattling of your steely restraints is rather starting to get on my nerves. You are making enough noise to raise the dead down there, in your dark dingy cell, and all your screaming is hardly helping is hardly helping matters. I wish that you would cease this infernal racket, but I know you will not. Nothing I say could ever get through to you. Not that you have ever listened to me in the first place. Perhaps you would listen to her, though. Is she not your kind, considerate mistress? Look now, she has come all this way, into the dark depths of the castle's cold, inhospitable dungeon to see you. Is that not kind of her? Oh, dear one, the princess trills, entering the dungeon with a series of light, lilting steps. It would seem like you have finally awoken. How are you? Based on all that infernal racket you've been making, it would seem like you have no shortage of energy. Balefully, you turn your head so as to meet the eyes of the princess. She is standing but a few paces away, beneath the roughly hewn stone arch which bids one entry, but barely ever an exit to the dungeons. The dungeons are dull and drab, but the princess is wearing her favorite red dress. It is so bright and brilliant that, for moments, it hurts you to look at her. Once the red of the princess's outfit made you think of romance, now it makes you think of violence. You must forgive me for leaving you down here for so long. That was unfair of me. I did think of waiting here with you by your side until you awoke, but... Once again, the princess giggles, a light, airy giggle which does not at all suit the situation which you have found yourself. A dungeon is not a fit place, after all, for a princess. It is horribly cold here, and so very drab, and there is nowhere nice and soft to lay my head. I could have brought pillows down from my bed, I suppose, and my blankets, but then they would have gone dirty, and that would be a disaster. I need to be more careful. I won't have anybody left to clean up after my messes soon, not when I've dispatched a few. Once again, the princess laughs. Her laughter is light and lilting, like the chiming of a silvery bell, but it does little to alleviate your concern. If anything, it makes you feel even more alarmed. Did she say she meant to dispatch of you? Yes, that's right. Could you not tell? I thought you might have figured that out already after waking up in a dungeon, silly. Still smiling, the princess takes another step towards you. Would that you could. You would cringe away from her, but you cannot. You are completely powerless. Okay. The princess reaches out and places a hand upon your cheek. Her skin is very white, and though her touch is cool, it is less slow than the frigid air in the dungeon. Though your body is aching, the princess's touch is gentle, and you find yourself leaning into it subconsciously. You wish she would keep holding you. You wish she would keep touching you. You luxuriate in her kindness as best as you can, but though the princess's caresses are tender, your circumstances rather undermine them. How can you relax like this? You're such a good girl, the princess says, in a cajoling sort of voice, as one might address a cat. You've been so lovely to me while we've been together. I really couldn't ask for a better servant. I feel as though I've been spoiled. Why then, you ask her, is she doing this? Improbable though it sounds, she must be the one who chained you up. There's nobody else in the castle who could have committed such a feat. Everybody else is dead. Why, yes, how very astute of you. I was the one who orchestrated all of this, naturally. Naturally, she says, as though her betrayal is a matter of course. Naturally. Why, you ask, is this so natural to her? What does she mean to do with you? Oh, only what I've done to all my other servants. I have experience with this sort of thing, so please don't worry. I'll take good care of you. And by take good care of, she means... Naturally, I'll kill you. There it is again. That word, which seems grossly inappropriate given which has transpired. Naturally. There's nothing natural about this. Do you not think so? The princess examines you, her expression ponderous. It is natural to me. Even if it isn't natural to other people, this just feels right. Imprisoning her servants in the dungeon and letting them die? Yes, exactly. There's a bit more to do it than that, though. Oh, of course there is. I like you, dear one, the princess says, in a voice which sounds uncommonly serious. You have been good to me, like I said, and kind. For that I will be eternally appreciative. You have been so good to me, in fact, that simply being with you is not enough. Not anymore. Your company can no longer content me. I'm a greedy, selfish girl, you see. The princess's smile widens into something sinister, her eyes flashing with a fiendish fervor you have never before witnessed. And I don't want to feel you— What? Oh my god, I messed up. How do I go back? And I don't want to feel you beside me. I want to feel you inside me. Well, of all the things your charming captive could have said, you did not expect that. The princess, perhaps, noticing your confusion, begins to giggle. A giggle even lighter than meringue, and just as airy. It is just as inoffensive. I can see that you don't understand, dear one, but you aren't the only one. My last lady's maid had said that too. Vainly the princess sighs, a beleaguered woe-is-me sigh, which makes her look even younger than the scant handful of years she truly possesses. And the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that. I thought that you at least might be able to appreciate my point of view, but perhaps not. I don't think it should be too complicated to grasp, really. But maybe my way of looking at the world is a little bit unique. That's what my nurse always used to say, at least, when she still had the breath to speak of course. You look at the princess, or else is there for you to look, really? Your eyes affixed to her face. She is still smiling, but there is something sinister about her smile. Or perhaps in your anxious state, you are only imagining that there is something sinister about her smile. It is easy to see things which do not really exist when your surroundings are festooned in shadows. In actuality, however, the princess does not look any different to how she usually does. Neither is she acting any differently to the way she usually acts. She has not changed. It is only your perspective of her that has changed. Tremulously you ask the princess what she means, a question the princess is only too happy to answer. It was simple, really. Like I said, you were wondering, weren't you, why there weren't any guards or any servants in this castle when you first arrived here? The question had crossed your mind, yes. You are sure that the princess said her ministers sent them away, though. Was that a lie? I wasn't being wholly truthful, no. I thought you would be afraid of me if you knew what had actually happened, and I didn't want that. I wanted you to stay with me. My ministers didn't send anybody away because I don't have any ministers. I dispatched of them too. Did she now? You suppose you ought not to be surprised, but you still shudder regardless. My ministers weren't very much fun, I'm afraid. They had a lot of ideas what I should and shouldn't do after my parents died. The princess stares at you, her eyes wide like black holes, empty, yawning abysses. So I killed them. I killed my servants too, though I did a more thorough job with them than I did my ministers. I did not care for my ministers, you see. They were all fusty old men, but I did love my servants. I loved my ladies' maids, and my undermaids, and my scullery maids, and my housekeeper, and my cooks, and my large retinue of retainers. They were like my family. They raised me in my parents' absence, and I adored them. They were so very dear to me that I had no real choice. I had to eat them. Does that follow? Not logically, no. Why, you asked the princess, your voice trembling, would you eat the people that you love? It seems a poor way to repay them for their kindness. Well, why wouldn't you eat the people that you love? I don't think there could be any greater way of showcasing one's gratitude, unless you have any better ideas. You weren't expecting the princess to turn the tables on you quite like this, and dumbfounded, you stare at her. You know precious little about love yourself, so it is hard for you to form a convincing rebuttal, but you muster up a few token arguments. You tell people that eating people isn't very nice, and neither is it strictly legal. A better way to show your gratitude to your servants would be with increased wages or increased holidays. The princess listens to your arguments, her expression astute, like a student poised to take notes in a very important lecture. Once you are finished, however, her concentration fails her. Her shoulders begin to shake, but it is not with remorse for what she has done. Instead, she is laughing. Oh, dear one, that is very funny. But why would I care about the law? I am a princess. One day, I'll be the queen. I am the law. That is a good point. But would eating people not turn her subjects against her? What subjects? I'm no fool, you know. No matter how I might act, and I know what happens beyond the castle's walls. I know all about the plague. Once, I might have had a populace to govern, but they're all gone now. I'm a princess in nothing but name only. A monarch without any subjects. She mentioned the plague! This is connected to the gravedigger. And the gravedigger, well, and the mermaid is connected to the gravedigger. How interesting! Don't you think that's sad? I know I do. It's so woefully lonely. If she feels lonely, then why has she been systematically slaughtering all of her domestics? It doesn't make a lick of sense. Perhaps not, to you. Gently, the princess caresses your cheek. But I shouldn't judge you too harshly, as much as I like you. Dear one, you are a commoner. Perhaps you can't understand the intricacies of my thoughts. Privately, you doubt that anybody would be able to understand the intricacies of the princess's thought process, largely because it is unreasonable. You do not say that, though. Instead, you ask her the only question you can think to ask, with your weary throat which is sore from shouting. Why? Why, you ask? The princess blinks. It's because I don't want you to leave me, of course. Everybody leaves sooner or later, whether they have pledged their allegiance to me or not. That is simply the way of the world. People are fickle and inconstant, even to me, a monarch. That is why I decided to eat my servants. I had no choice, you see. It was the only way to ensure that they would never leave me. When you think about it, they should be grateful that I would demean myself so to consume their flesh and blood. I am a magnanimous ruler, you see, and I treat all of my subjects equally. I love every single one of you, and naturally, I love you too. You have been awfully nice to me, and you are very pretty alongside it. If you were a plain ugly girl, perhaps I would not shower you with affection quite as intense as this. But you've captured my heart. I think you love me. So, I'll bestow upon you the highest honor I can conceive of. I want your body to mix with mine. Then, we can stay together forever and ever. The princess leans in. You can feel her soft silken hair brushing against your cheeks. Can feel, too, the warmth of her breath as it goes against your skin. It is cold in the dungeon, but the princess's close proximity is, perverse though this might sound, something of a comfort. Her eyes are wide and her lips are so red. Her smile, meanwhile, is so sweet. I've been doing my best to fulfill the role that fate has dictated for me, but really, the princess exhales. Her eyes, which are boring into yours, are like two dark tarns. Finally, you think you can see the alarmingly lack of light, the lack of anything in the princess's gaze, some degree of humanity. It gets so lonely here. But this brief flicker of understanding which passes between the two of you is soon cut short. The princess dips her head. She parts her lips, which are as red as the petals of a carnivorous flower. You feel the princess's breath against your cheek. Neck, rather. It is warm in the icy chill of the dungeons, and you shudder from it. For a few moments, you think that this overture of the princess's could be romantic in a way, but this too comes to a swift, merciless close. Oh god, that sound. The princess's mouth is on your neck. The princess's teeth, sharp as needles, are in your flesh. The princess is draining your blood. She is supping on it in great greedy gobbets, like a hungry animal who cannot truly comprehend the harm it is causing. Even as the princess sups from you, her arms twined around your waist, you find you cannot hate her. She is far too unworldly. You are sure as your consciousness begins to fade that the princess was being sincere when she spoke of her love for her past servants. That is simply the way the princess expresses her love, this great love of hers, a love which is so very abundant it borders upon the monstrous. It is a love you never thought that you would ever experience. This love of the princesses eclipses anything you have ever known before. It eclipses sanity. It eclipses reason. It eclipses all notions you might once have had of right or wrong. The princess who you know full well does not care about such concepts. You have always possessed a stubborn core, nestled beneath your weak-willed interior. But the princess is even stubborner than you are. In the face of her love, you have met your match. The princess draws back, desperately. You gasp for air, but she does not give you any quarter. As before, she tips her head and her lips redder still with your blood, then splits apart her jaw. Her teeth, which are impossibly inhumanly sharp, glint wickedly like knives. Then she tears out your throat. The front of your nightgown was white once. Now it is red. There is so much blood you can smell it when you inhale, sharper than metal. It is so potent you can taste it on your tongue. You try to inhale, but this task proves to be beyond you. What with the twin perforations that have ruptured your skin? You attempted breaths. When they escape your lips, sound like sad sorry wheezes. Your whole body, meanwhile, feels as though it is on fire. You make for quite the sorry sight indeed, but you'll forgive me if my sympathy is limited. You did bring this upon yourself, you know. You reap what you sow, and in your case, you made a series of bad decisions which led to your untimely demise. Now, what do you want to do?
Oh, I should have saved earlier. Well, it's fine.
Will you accept this fate of yours and rest in peace, or will you try to fight against it?
Let's accept it.
What? Really? You're fine with being eaten alive in the dark, dingy dungeon than being left to rot? That does not sound like a very satisfying ending to this particular narrative. But if that is what you want, then so be it. I do not mind indulging you. That is what I have always done after all, from the moment we first met. I have dedicated myself tirelessly to answering your wishes, and this is no different. Do not be so foolish to think, though, that you can escape me, even if your life's blood has mingled with that of the princesses. I am not going to relinquish my hold upon you that easily. I did pledge, after all, to remain by your side, come what will, fire or flood. I will never leave you. You will never be lonely again.
Okay, time to load now. Let's go against it.
That is a good answer. I must admit, I like it. It is impressive how very defiant you can be, even in a situation as discomforting as this. Now, try not to cry. Keep your chin up. This is but a minor setback in your story. Like all fair maidens, you are deserving of your own happy ending. You only need the strength to try and seek it out. Why don't we give this another go? Just try not to ensnare the hearts of any more monarchs, particularly those with unusual appetites. You are destined for far higher purposes than being an entree, and there are vastly more enjoyable ways to be eaten in this world. Your fate is once again in your hands. Now I wonder, which path will you take? There's nowhere for me to go. So you've come back here, have you? That does not come as much of a surprise. Though presented with 3 potential paths, it is not as though traversing any of them would have any particular impact upon your ultimate fate. In the end, you were always destined to return here. Did you really think you had a choice? How hopelessly naive of you. I thought that you were smarter than that. Your breath, which once escaped your lips in sharp, ragged gasps, is now on the verge of petering out altogether. Your lungs feel deflated, as though they have been punctured. Your blood is rushing through your temples in a heady, overwhelming surge. Your stomach, meanwhile, has twisted itself into knots. Your body feels heavy, your legs in particular. They no longer wish to obey you. You take a stumbling step forwards, and your foot gets caught in a tree root. You are certain that you passed this root once already, and that you sidestep it. But perhaps your memory is beginning to fail you, just like the rest of your body. Oh, what the? I don't know why that jump scared me. Oh my god. You gasp, surprise, and pitch forwards, dull and senseless, like a sack full of potatoes. Your arm hits the ground with a crack, one which makes you cry out in pain. Tears begin to bead on your eyes, wet and salty, tears which you cannot stem. You are not as resilient as the gravedigger, nor as carefree as the princess. If you lived underwater like the mermaid, then nobody at the very least would be able to tell that you are crying. But you do not, and I can. Believe me, I can. Your arm aches dreadfully, but at least you can still feel it. Your poor feet, meanwhile, have gone quite numb. You would try to stand had you the energy, but you know, as you sit there, dazed, that this would be a futile effort. You cannot stand, not any longer. It hurts too much. You really have been through a lot tonight, haven't you? I fear I have not been very kind to you. But you ought to be accustomed to hardship. Why then are you crying? You have always been a crybaby. That is why they teased you so much. It is because they knew they would be guaranteed a reaction. You are very predictable. Even now, after you tried to borrow my power for your own purposes, you have not changed at all. As you sit there, sobbing, you hear, or you think you can hear, footsteps approaching you. There, to your right, is the snapping of a twig. To your left, the telltale rustle of leaves. Your every sense feels razor sharp, honed to a knife's point by anxiety. You are so panicked, you feel as though you are going to be sick. If you want to vomit, then why not? There is no shame in it. There is nobody here to judge you. Nobody but me. I have always been here, you know. I will always be here, no matter how fast you try to run, or how far. Did you really think you could escape me? Poor sweet child. Poor little fool. I did tell you, did I not? A contract with a witch is binding. No amount of physical distance between the both of us could ever sever it. I told you I would never let you be lonely, and I meant it. But I have had rather enough of these little games. It is time for me to collect my collateral. A soft gasp. Hi, witch!
Oh my god, sorry. Oh. Oh, I love how her highlights are shaped like bones. Man. A soft gasp escapes your throat as you feel arms wind their way about your back. Naturally, you know whose arms they are. They are mine. I have been watching you all night, but this is the first time I have reached out to you in so direct a manner. Did you not expect me to be so forward? I can hear your heart fluttering in your chest. It is beating very quickly, like a startled rabbit's. Your breaths are short and sharp. It is a cold night, and though I am holding you, you are still shaking. I wish you would not tremble so. Everybody fears the unknown, but we are not strangers. We have spoken before, have we not? When you first called me forth from the ether, using that book you found in the library. You were desperate enough then to turn to the occult for help. You pleaded with me to use my magic for your behalf. You begged me. You implored and you entreated and you wailed and you whined, and though I had some reservations, you forced my hand. I had no choice, not in the face of your desperation. You did not want to be lonely anymore. You wanted to have a friend, somebody who would always be there for you, no matter what. You wanted somebody to love you. Is that not what you demanded of me? Is that not what I had given you? You might think me wicked, but I think you are being awfully cruel yourself, to run from me after I made all of your wishes come true. I did think, about punishing you for running away from me. I thought of poking your eyes so that you might never see anybody other than me. I thought of cutting off your long, lovely hair so that nobody might ever think you beautiful but me. I thought of breaking your legs so that you might never be able to escape from me. I turned all of these intriguing ideas over in my mind, but I am a merciful witch. Though you hurt me, I did not wish to hurt you. You asked, after all, that I love you, and that is what I did. I have drowned you in my love. I have buried you beneath my love. I have swallowed you with my love. You have always been a sad, lonely girl, one who has been starved of affection. Nobody has ever cared for you. Your life has been a barren, empty wasteland, one devoid of any fonder feelings. That is exactly why I had to drown you, see? That is why I had to bury you. It is why I had to swallow you. In the end, I was doing you a favor. I was doing it all for you. In that sense, you are very lucky, do you know that? There are few people in the world who have had the privilege of being loved to the brink of insanity quite as many times in one night. There are few people in the world who can claim to have been loved by a witch. You have been experienced so much love it ought to have slaked even your unquenchable thirst. But now, you know now, what it feels like to be adored. I have more than upheld my end of the bargain. Now, I think it is time that you do the same. From this night forth, you and I will always be together. Then, I shall be able to love you endlessly. You will never be lonely again. No, that can't be it. That can't be it. I haven't completed all of the achievements. That's not right. I still have several achievements to do. Wait. Where are my saves? What? Notes. Oh my god. This wasn't here before. Hello everyone, this is Abby. Thank you for taking the time to read It Gets So Lonely here. I hope it was an enjoyable experience. I usually leave a few notes in my VNs to explain what inspired me, so I guess I'll do that now. Oh my, this is quite a long note. I won't read all of this, but I'll cut cut to like what's the most important part.
Okay, so this part is interesting. If you check the art gallery, isn't there a picture which is still locked? Now let's see.
There is.
I wonder why that could be. Maybe you should go through the story again. You might find something that'll surprise you.
Honestly, sure. We'll do that in the next video. Let's unlock that artwork.